Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Anti-Doping Updates. This week we've got 3 great stories to talk about. First, we've got the long-awaited full decision from the Court for Arbitration of Sport in the decision of WADA versus Rusada. Second, we have a rugby player who has tried to use a tainted meat defense. And third, I wanted to update you about one of the interesting changes to the 2021 World Anti-Doping Code in regards to substances of abuse. Before we get any further, please, if you found this video interesting, give it a like and subscribe for new updates so that I can help grow the channel. Okay, let's get started. First story to talk about is WADA versus Rusada. WADA is the World Anti-Doping Association. Rusada is the Russian Anti-Doping Association. A few weeks ago in episode 5, which I'll put a link down in the comments to, we got the press release from the Court for Arbitration of Sport in regards to this decision. And in the press release, it announced that the Court for Arbitration of Sport agreed with WADA and upheld the consequences to Rusada for being non-compliant with the code. The short story of how we got here is that in the 2014 Olympics, Rusada, with the help of government officials from Russia, engaged in a systematic scheme of doping during the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics. And as a result of that, Rusada was suspended, and in order to get back into compliance, they had to turn over data from their Moscow laboratory. When they finally turned over the data, it was altered and tampered with in a very substantial way. They found that there had been alterations, deletions. They'd even fabricated messages in the data meant to implicate one of the whistleblowers, Grigory Rodchenkov, and one of his coworkers, trying to inculpate them, make it look like they were not whistleblowers at all, but actually engaged in a scheme to extort athletes and trainers into not disclosing their positive tests. The Court for Arbitration of Sport agreed that WADA had proven all this and agreed that with their monetary and non-monetary sanctions, namely no flag, no national flag, no national emblem on their uniforms, no national anthem played at victories, ceremonies, and no rights to host or bid for world championships or Olympics or Paralympics during the period that the consequences were going to be in effect. So Court for Arbitration of Sport agreed with all that, but they reduced the sanction from 4 years down to 2 years. And when that was announced back in December, lots of people in the sporting community were very upset with that and disappointed with the Court for Arbitration of Sport. USADA, the United States Anti-Doping Association, UK Anti-Doping, Sport Integrity Australia, Sport Ireland, lots of people were published statements expressing their disappointment with the Court for Arbitration of Sport and wondering why the court reduced the sanctions from 4 years down to 2 years when this was the most serious type of doping offense going on, state-sponsored cheating at the very highest level. So now we have the decision, and the Court for Arbitration of Sport explained just briefly why they reduced it from 4 years down to 2 years. The decision is huge. It goes on for pages and pages and pages. It's over 800 paragraphs. And it goes into detail how proven their allegations. But only a small part deals with why they reduced the sanctions from 4 years down to 2 years. Here's what the court reasoned. They considered three things. First, they considered that the World Anti-Doping Code, the International Standards for Code Compliance, has a provision that says the usual consequence for non-compliance with the code for a WADA signatory is 1 year and one edition of the Summer and Winter Olympic Games. Second thing they considered was that WADA, in its revised submissions to the Court for Arbitration of Sport regarding this case, indicated that they only intended the consequences to apply for one edition of the Summer and Winter Games. Thirdly, the Court for Arbitration of Sport considered proportionality. Here's what they mean by proportionality. Proportionality means a measure must not exceed what is reasonably required in the search of the justifiable aim. And they also noted that from the time that WADA received the fabricated or altered and tampered with data from Rusada to when they announced their consequences, it was only 4 days. So the Court for Arbitration of Sport considered that maybe WADA had not really fully considered the provision of proportionality, and they were going to, as the arbitrators in this case, they had the authority to make their own measure of proportionality. And with that, that's their explanation as to how they got from 4 years down to 2 years sanction. I'm not sure I entirely agree with that, but that's what they decided. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with the decision to reduce the sanction down from 4 years to 2 years. The next case to talk about is Mark Jones. Mark Jones is an amateur rugby player. He plays with the Cambrian Welfare RFC, the Cambrian Welfare Rugby Football Club of the Welsh Rugby Union. This is a lower league team. He's amateur. He's also employed as a care assistant where he helps individuals with disabilities gain employment, and he also helps coach. In April of 2019, some doping control officers from UK Anti-Doping came to the practice grounds where the Cambrian Welfare RFC club was practicing, and they had a list of individuals that they were going to test. One of the people that was on the list wasn't at practice that day, and so Mark Jones volunteered to be tested. He wasn't scheduled to be tested, but he said, "I'll take the test because I have nothing to hide." When UK Anti-Doping analyzed the test, it tested positive for clenbuterol. Clenbuterol is a beta-2 agonist, and also it can be used as a bronchodilator, and it also has thermogenetic properties. It increases your internal body temperature, and so it's been used as a basal metabolic increase and a weight loss drug. It increases maximum heart rate and exercise output, and it has been, clenbuterol is one of those things that has been very much abused in sport, and especially in rugby. That's what UK Anti-Doping found. So on the doping control form, it asked him if he had been to Mexico, China, or Guatemala and consumed meat there. When Mark Jones was informed of the positive test, he said his defense was that, well, I purchased meat at the Splot Market in Cardiff, Wales, and maybe that was contaminated meat. He thought he may have purchased some Australian corn-fed beef, or maybe some Wagyu beef steaks from China. The Splot Market in Cardiff, Wales is an open-air flea market type of situation with vendors selling all kinds of stuff from household goods, fruits, vegetables, all kinds of stuff. And 2 days a week, they allow people to drive in and sell stuff out of their cars. Mark Jones said that that's where he bought the meat that may have been tainted, and he bought it from someone in a white van that was unmarked, and he paid cash and he didn't have a receipt. So UK anti-doping found that he hadn't proved his case that his positive result for combuterol was the result from tainted meat, and sanctioned him for 4 years. Mark Jones appealed that first instance decision to a appeal decision with UK anti-doping, and in the appeal hearing, he again argued tainted meat and argued, and this is where the case turns a little bit interesting, he argued that the UK anti-doping abused their discretion in deciding not to accept his defense. He argued that, and the World Anti-Doping Code provides that if you make a prompt admission and if the World Anti-Doping Association agrees, then there is discretion to reduce the sanction. And UK anti-doping did not reduce the sanction, and in the appeal hearing it was decided that that was correct, although he claimed to have the positive result from tainted meat. He hadn't proven that. There's no proof that he bought meat, or that the meat he bought was tainted, or that the results of his test were consistent with tainted meat. And so, since he hadn't shown how he tested positive, then there's no basis to reduce the sanction based on a prompt admission, because it hadn't shown how he tested positive. And so the 4-year sanction was upheld, and that's what he got, 4-year ban. Okay, last story to talk about is one change to the 2021 World Anti-Doping Code in regards to substances of abuse. Previously, substances of abuse were treated like other prohibited substances, and either a 4-year sanction for an intentional violation or a 2-year sanction for an unintentional violation with possible reductions based on degree of fault, whether it's no fault or negligence or no significant fault or negligence. The 2021 World Anti-Doping Code deals with it a slightly different way. But first, what are the substances of abuse? And those are cocaine, MDMA, heroin, and THC, which is the active ingredient in marijuana. Under the 2021 code, if the individual can show that their positive test for one of these substances of abuse, again, cocaine, MDMA, THC, or heroin, if you can show that your positive test for one of those was from out of competition use and unrelated to sport performance, if you can show that, then the sanction is only 3 months, not 4 years, not 2 years, 3 months sanction for that. And it can be further reduced to 1 month if the athlete completes an education program that is approved by the relevant anti-doping association with results management authority, meaning the anti-doping association that's deciding that case. So that is meant to be fairer to athletes. The other provision that's in the 2021 code is that if there's changes that would result in a reduced sanction, such as things that are no longer on the prohibited list, and such as the changes to the substance of abuse, you can apply to the anti-doping authority that has results management authority. You can apply to them for a reduced sanction. And I expect we'll be starting to see more and more of this. UK anti-doping already announced that they're reducing the sanction of 7 athletes that had previously tested positive for substances of abuse. They've already served out more than 3 months, and so they've ended their sanction for that. So that's it for Anti-Doping Update Episode 9 for this week. Stay tuned for next week where we'll have more exciting stories, and remember to tap that like button gently and to subscribe to get more notifications. Hope you have a great day.